Hello, everyone who is joining right now. Welcome in to the webinar. I'm glad that you all could make it. Just waiting for a couple more people before we begin. Okay, so hello, everyone. My name is Raeed Sheikh. I'm a recent CS grad from UC Riverside, and I'm a current part-time math teacher at Think Academy. Um, I've grown up in the Bay Area. I'm a native here, and I attended the Belmont public school system here, the Santa Clara school system, and then I ended my educational career through in Fremont. So I attended elementary, middle school, and high school in Fremont. So I've gone through the whole process of college admission through Bay Area public schools, um, in addition to taking math placement exams and all those sorts of things that kind of define your path if you are a student or a young student in the Bay Area. So um, with that, I'd like to open how to better prepare for middle school based on my experiences and the vast experience and data collected by Think Academy. And we have a WhatsApp group chat for Bay Area parents. And if you scan this, you could join that. So let's begin. So our overview for today is we're going to first talk about the public school math track, the different placement exams based on the public school district. After that, we're going to discuss how to get ready for middle school, what kind of steps parents can take so that their student is in the best possible position for high school and middle school. And we'll also talk about preparing for those middle school math placement tests. And then finally, we'll talk about Think Academy, what kind of programs we offer, and how these programs could best benefit uh, your child in order to do well in middle school. So the school districts that we'll be talking about today are Cupertino, Palo Alto, Fremont, and Saratoga, and we'll also touch on Santa Clara, Los Altos, and San Jose in case any parents are from those school districts. So before we begin, I would appreciate if everyone in the chat could just let me know what school district their children is. If you could just type it in the chat. Okay, so we have someone from Cupertino, Santa Clara, and San Jose. Okay, so I'll definitely touch on Santa Clara and San Jose then. Okay, yeah, Cupertino. Okay, Belmont. Okay, Palo Alto, Campbell. Okay, yeah. So a lot of these school districts, they will vary in a couple of ways, but the school districts we'll discuss today, should encompass the curriculums that whatever school district your child may be in. So if you don't see your school district listed here, do keep in mind one of these curriculum most likely follows it, and the general rules will be the same. So don't worry too much about the specific school district, but I'm glad that we were able to get an overview for the school districts that all the children are in. So before we even really get into what our kind of what we're trying to meet and the kind of goals we're trying to meet and we're trying to set, let's kind of discuss why we want to set these goals, right? So the public school math track sets you up or sets students up in a specific way so that they have to follow the math track that they're set up, right? And we want to or maximize the level of math that the student is in high school. And the thing is, the math class they take in high school is directly correlated or directly related to the math class they take in middle school. And why do we want to be in the best math class? Well, it would be to attend a top 20 university. So let's discuss top 20 universities, right? Because the reason why a student would do well in middle school, why they would basically set themselves up to be on the best math track would be generally to attend a top 20 school. So some of the advantages of attending a top 20 school. There's academic excellence, right? So these schools are very rigorous in their processes, in their academic processes and curriculums. They really push the student and help them develop academically. They provide amazing networking opportunities because you have alumni from these universities um, basically helping each other climb in the corporate ladder as well as in startups and other type of other type of um, organizations. Then we have career opportunities. Companies look very favorably upon top 20 universities, right? Um, if you go to one of these schools, you have a much better chance of getting hired straight out. Then we have alumni networks. So graduates from these schools usually help each other, again, as I said, to climb the corporate ladder. And then finally, there's the global perspective. These top 20 universities attract the best talent around the world, and being in that environment exposes you to the potential to kind of develop and see the best the world really has to offer. So these are some of the advantages, and it's definitely our goal is to get students in the top 20 university, right? That's why we want to have an excellent academic track within math and everything else. So with that out of the way, let's see why preparing for middle school is important. So here I have two different students. Both of these students, as you can see, were admitted into top 20 universities. The first student who attended Gunn High School was able to get into University of California, Berkeley, and the other student who was a female who attended Lynbrook was able to get into Cornell. Now, as you can see, they have very high stats, right? They have near perfect GPAs. Although it's not shown here, they also had very high standard test scores. But if you notice another trend is they have a lot of these AP classes, right? They have a lot of these AP classes. Now, what exactly is an AP class? An AP class is essentially a high level college class that you can take in high school. And if you want to be prepared to get into a top university, it is now almost mandatory for students to take many APs. But there's a big issue with APs. They require students to fulfill many prerequisites. So let's get in quickly to what exactly AP classes are and how they work. So as I mentioned, AP classes are college level courses that are offered in high school. They essentially prepare students to take an AP exam that's offered at the end of the class, which can give them college credit. And the AP courses offered between schools vary, and the prerequisites they have also vary. So, what does this mean? What is an AP class? In short, an AP class is a college level class you can take in high school, and if you are able to do well in this class, potentially take the AP exam. Doing well in the AP exam allows the student to get college credit, and college credit allows students to skip that class in college. Now, as we know, top 20 schools and most universities in general are very expensive, right? We're talking about 40 to $50,000 a year, depending on the university. And if you are able to skip several classes in high school by taking these AP classes, you can potentially cut a whole year of college. And for me, I was able to take enough APs to where I could graduate 2 quarters early, like saving me a very substantial sum of money and also time and effort, right? So let's kind of see how AP classes work, right? So we now understand what AP classes are. They're college level courses you can take in high school, right? Um, but they're not that straightforward to take. A student can't simply enroll in an AP class and then directly get placed in. They need to meet certain prerequisites. So let's take a look at the prerequisites for AP chemistry, okay? Now, again, schools get to set everything about these AP classes. They get to set their own they get to set what prerequisites they want students to take. They get to set um, what kind of grades you need to get in that class to be able to take the next AP, for example, for AP Physics. There's two AP Physics. like schools can say that you have to get a specific grade in AP Physics 1 to take AP Physics C, for example. Um, so again, it varies from school to school. So let's look at AP Chemistry, for example. Schools can go three different paths that we've normally seen. One, they just say there's no prerequisite and you can directly take AP Chemistry in grade 9. Some schools require basic chemistry classes, and then you can take AP Chemistry in grade 10. And then some schools require a student to complete both basic chemistry plus Algebra 2 math if they want to take AP Chemistry. This means before even applying to enroll in this class, the student must complete Algebra 2, right? And if you look at the general track of schools, Algebra 2 isn't taken until the junior year of high school, meaning that students would be locked out of taking this AP earlier. And I'll explain a little bit why this becomes an issue. Um, so before we touch on that, I would like to go a little more in detail onto AP class requirements. So again, enrollment in AP classes, as I said earlier, is subject to strict prerequisite guidelines, right? Additionally, schools also have semester limits, allowing students to only register for 3 to 4 APs at a time. What does this mean? As I said earlier, APs have strict prerequisites, right? For example, AP Chem in this school requires a successful completion of a second-year algebra course or higher, and addition very strong knowledge of algebra and high confidence in problem-solving skills, etc., right? So they set very strict guidelines. On top of this, schools also limit the number of APs a student can take, right? They can only take 3 to 4 APs at one semester. Okay, so with this information, um, it becomes kind of clear that it's difficult to just kind of take as many APs you want and whenever you want them because schools set very strict guidelines around these APs. And to add on top of that, STEM APs carry the most importance, right? They're very demanding and they require you to take several prerequisites because STEM APs often have high math level requirements. You can get away with taking AP History, AP US History, AP English without much previous knowledge, right? Because those classes usually just require good reading and writing skills, and they're very independent in terms of the knowledge required. But STEM APs require the student to have a built up knowledge. They require the student to take high level math or sometimes high level science. Therefore, planning ahead for math classes is key to maximizing the number of STEM APs you can take in high school. This is kind of the key point that we really want to understand for the slides is that in order to take the most, or sorry, in order to get into the best university, into a top 20 university, right? We need to have really good GPA. We need to have great extracurriculars, and we also need to take a lot of APs, right? We need to students need to show colleges that they can take college level coursework and like pass through it in high school, take AP exams, and display high scores for these colleges. So, what does this mean? This means you want to take as many APs in high school as possible as early on. So, if a student is still taking Algebra 1 or geometry in their freshman year of high school, that basically locks them out of taking any APs their freshman or sophomore year, right? They would have to complete the math classes required, and then they can only begin taking APs in their junior and senior year. But then this again severely limits the number of APs they can take because now they might only be able to take 3 or 4 APs instead of the potential to take 9 or 10 or 7 or 8 APs if they were able to complete the math class earlier. So, as I said a little bit earlier, we want to maximize competitiveness, right? So we can use this guiding principle for the remainder of our presentation. This is basically the idea that we will be working on, right? Um, we want to maximize competitiveness for admission to top tier universities. And in order to maximize this competitiveness, students must complete Algebra 2 by 9th grade, right? We need the students if a student wants to have a good shot at a top university, and I know this seems very kind of extreme, completing Algebra 2 by 9th grade, because if we look at the basic Common Core standards, in 9th grade, like across California, the average high school student would probably be taking Algebra 1, and most high school students will end high school taking pre-calculus their senior year. But if you do this, you severely limit the number of APs you take. You cannot take AP calculus in high school, and you cannot really kind of like show your academic credentials to these top universities. So this is a very important rule that we want to kind of follow if we want students to be able to get into the top schools. And in order to achieve this, we need the students to be taking uh, geometry by grade 8 and algebra 1 by grade 7. And this is a much more accelerated pace than the average public school Fremont, sorry, not Fremont, California high school student, right? Because the average California high school student, as I said earlier, takes um, algebra 1 and or geometry in their freshman year of high school. So they are well behind this pace. Most actually take algebra 1 in their freshman year, not even geometry in that case. They take geometry their sophomore years. So we want to be ahead of the curve, right? Because we're competing for top 20 universities, right? Um, you need to be among the best for this. So now, with that fact in mind, by ninth grade is oh, sorry. So question by ninth grade equals before entering ninth. Um, no, it means that at the end of ninth grade, they need to complete Algebra 2. So what we want is for students in grade 8 to be taking geometry, in grade 7 to be taking Algebra 1, and in grade 9, we want the student to be taking Algebra 2. Thank you for the question. So now, what does this mean? This means the grade 5 or grade 6 placement test is very important, right? The grade 5 or grade 6 placement test is essentially a math placement test that students have to take in their 5th and 6th grade. And then doing well on this test will allow them to get into the accelerated math track. If they're able to get into the accelerated math track, they can basically take more advanced math classes early on. And this allows them to take more APs in their freshman and sophomore year of high school, while most other high school students are still completing those math requirements, right? So by being ahead of the curve, you can maximize your academic credentials, right? You can be taking many APs, and this shows the top universities. This student is not like other high school students. He or she is able to do math at a much more advanced level, and they were able to take many more college level classes. So this must be a very qualified student, right? So as I said, students need to do well on these placement tests to be put on the fast track, right? Otherwise, what will happen? The consequences are they will have fewer opportunities to take STEM APs and even potentially lose the possibility of being on the fast track. Now, what happens if you lose the possibility of being on the fast track? Well, this means that students end up on a general track and they will have to take the same math classes as everyone else in high school. And this usually ends up being pre-calculus your senior year, or if you're in the slightly accelerated track, calculus. But again, these are not ideal situations. So what is our solution to this? Before the grade 5 placement test, we want students to complete Common Core Math 6. This means we want the student to study the math that they will take in 6th grade. So when they take that placement test, they're able to skip that subject and go straight they can go straight after grade 6 to algebra in grade 7, right? And then that same standard applies here for grade 6. Before the grade 6 placement test, we want the students to complete pre-algebra. So I know this can be kind of a lot of information so far, but what I'll try to simplify it the best I can, and we'll look at each public school and try to compare the different curriculums to see what students can do between these different schools to be on the best track. But before we do that, we want to kind of set a standard of what we're comparing to, right? And a good standard of like what a math curriculum should be is Basis's math curriculum. So this is a STEM focused school called Basis. Do any parents in the chat know about Basis? Has anyone heard about this school? Hmm. So it seems like most people haven't heard of the school, but Basis is essentially a STEM focused private school. And they have very advanced math standards, and their students end up doing very well related to STEM related courses, and their students do really well in taking AP courses because, as you can see, based on their track, at the very minimum level, their most basic track lets the student take Algebra 2 and Geometry by ninth grade. And at the most advanced track, assuming the student is able to do well on this performance-based test or get summer credit by taking class in the summer, right? They can potentially take AP Calculus in their ninth grade, right? This is extremely advanced, and most students won't take that. But it really shows that that basis has the math curriculum that prepares students to basically get into the best universities, right? Students are able to take the highest level math as early as possible and basically take as many APs as they want. And this is why basis is good. It allows students to maximize the number of APs they can take once they reach high school. So, oops, how does the math curriculum in public school compare with the top private schools? Let's start looking at some schools. We'll start off with Cupertino School District. So I remember a good amount of the parents here mentioned that their children are in the Cupertino School District. So if we could just kind of summarize how Cupertino School District kind of operates with math, we would say they have a late start, but they have a very fast pace, right? So what does this mean exactly? Let's take a look at the math curriculum or the math pathways that a student can go through if they live in or if they attend the Cupertino Middle School and elementary schools. So starting at Math 6, which is standard for all students, which is most likely Common Core 6 Math, they are offered a diagnostic exam, right? This diagnostic exam is for 7th grade placement, and it allows students to basically go in 3 tracks. There's the basic track, which if you don't do well or if you get is no, not a good score, you'll be put in this track, right? There's the kind of accelerated where you cover Math 7 and also most of the Math 8 standards, right? And then finally, there's Math 7, 8, and Algebra, all covered in 1 year. So this is extremely fast, and it requires you to do very well on these exam, right? So we'll go into more details about what kind of scores you need for that exam, as well as what that exam exactly consists of. But assuming the student is able to get into the most advanced track, they then have an opportunity to pass another diagnostic and go directly into geometry in 8th grade. Now, if you recall, what we wanted the student to achieve was to take geometry in grade 8, right? So again, as I said, these are very high expectations, right? Like I understand it's not easy to definitely achieve this, but it is possible and it is ideal because in doing so, you're setting yourself up to finish calculus in your second year of high school. And if you can do that, you would be able to take many more APs. So what do the students need to do? They need to do well on the diagnostic exam for between grades 6 and 7, and then do well on the next diagnostic exam between grades 7 and 8. Now, I would like everyone to also notice that you can only get into the most advanced track from the start. For example, if the student ends up in the mid track where they're able to do 7th standard math, so CC7, and then also do some of CC8, they will not have the option to take geometry in 8th grade. That pathway is locked. At best, they can do algebra in 8th grade. Now, this is not terrible because this means you can take geometry in 9th grade and you end up taking you can take calculus in your junior or senior year, but it is not as ideal because again, you're minimizing the number of APs you could take. And when we look at everything through the lens of we want the child to get into a top university, then we need to be on the most accelerated path. So, what do we need to do to prepare that child to get in to the most accelerated track? So here I have the metrics that the school uses. So here's the measure title. So we have the iReady diagnostic, the 7th grade standard readiness test, and then finally teacher verification. So let's focus on the first two. If a student wants to be placed directly into algebra after 6th grade, they need to score a 548 on the iReady, and then score an 85% or higher on the algebra readiness test, right? Now, these are definitely high scores. And as you can see here for the testing window, this testing window is for last year, but keep in mind the testing window usually stays the same year after year. The testing window is March 1st through April 1st. And right now it's February 7th. So that testing window is coming up, right? There's a month or two. And for the other one, the other exam, which is the seventh grade readiness, seventh grade standard based readiness test, this exam is in April. So also coming up very soon, right? So um, if you do want to prepare for this class, we do offer an incoming grade 7 placement test short-term course. So how this course works is you have this exam upcoming now for the season in a month, um, and you want to prepare to be in the fastest track, right? Students only get this one opportunity. As I displayed earlier, there is only one opportunity for students to get into the most accelerated track. If students miss this opportunity, they will not be able to take eighth grade geometry in their eighth grade, and they will be locked into one of these two tracks, right? So if you're in that situation where you're not prepared yet, you haven't studied that level of math, which most students probably haven't, because keep in mind, public schools will not prepare you for this exam, right? This is for 95% of students, they're not preparing to take geometry in eighth grade and algebra one in seventh grade, right? Only a small group of students do this. So outside prep is required. You would either have to study it on your own, or if you want, we offer these courses. Um, we have 4 lessons at $99, and you can scan this QR code or take a screenshot if you want to scan it later. Whatever the case is, we have Dr. Marie teaching it. She has 10 years of experience and a PhD. She's extremely qualified, and if you take this course, the student has a very strong chance of doing well on this exam. Furthermore, we also have a promo code here, Test Prep 24, for $20 off. Just a little thank you for coming to the webinar and absorbing the information with us. We're giving you a further discount in case you want to take this class. Yeah, so continuing on, we'll look at the Fremont School District. Now, Fremont School District is similar in that they also have a sixth grade math placement exam, but they are slower because if you notice, the most accelerated pace uh, does not allow us, the most accelerated pace has students completing geometry, trigonometry, and part of algebra 2 in ninth grade, right? But the full algebra 2 and trigonometry is only finished in 10th grade. So based on this, at best, a student can finish calculus BC by 11th grade. Now, although this is not as ideal as the other path we earlier mentioned, this is still good because if a student is able to complete AP Calculus A, B, or BC by their 11th grade, they can then use the score and grade they received in this class and put it on their college application. Because what happens is when senior students in high school usually take a lot of APs, myself included, is we take the AP, we get a good grade, and we get a good AP testing score, right? But we can't actually put it on the college application because applications are due earlier in the year. So even though we did well on these exams, they can't actually help us in any way other than give us college credit. So by taking the class your junior year or even sophomore year, students would be able to really show colleges that they have that they're very stand out and very good at math, right? So moving on, we have some test sample questions from Fremont. So this is kind of what a lot of the exams will be like. They have their own set of questions, and they won't exactly be like this, but they will have like a similar level of difficulty and concepts, right? So we have um, we have these available, but if you do want more information, we have a contact slide at the end. And in that contact slide, if your school wasn't mentioned, or if you would like to know more about the testing standards for your specific school, please reach out and we'll try to provide that information to you. Okay, moving on. So I have another question here. So is it before sixth or after sixth? So um the exam is after sixth over here in Fremont. So again, this also varies from district to district, as we'll see with some other public schools. Some public schools have the examination in fifth grade, and then they also have exams in sixth grade, and then also have exams in seventh grade. So it really varies. In the case of Fremont, um, and then also Cupertino, the exam takes place during sixth grade. So while you're in sixth grade, not necessarily, I guess, after. Okay, so now moving on to the Palo Alto School District. So the Palo Alto School District is good because it's very flexible, okay? So they have their traditional track. And in the traditional track, students can go through foundational math. So for San Jose School District, so the question is what prep is required for kids now in fifth grade, San Jose District. We'll cover that. I have San Jose ahead in the slides, but for now we'll discuss Palo Alto. So the traditional track for Palo Alto, as you can see, has foundational math, concepts in math, algebra 1, and etc. It's pretty straightforward. As long as you pass your classes and don't fail, the student should be able to take AP Calculus BC or AB by 12th grade. And this is not the most ideal case because, as I mentioned earlier, if you take those classes in your 12th grade, you won't be able to put them on your college application and use them for your own benefit, right? So then another flexible pathway they have is they allow you to take data science, they allow you to take introduction to analysis and calculus. So a lot of different paths, right? But again, you can only end up taking calculus BC or AB in your 12th grade at best. Again, this isn't meeting our target, right, of taking algebra 2 in ninth grade, and thus it's reducing our potential to take as many AP courses as possible in high school. So Palo Alto also Palo Alto also offers this pathway, which is the pathway with validations or placement tests. So students have multiple opportunities, right, to get into the fastest track. Okay, so starting in fifth grade, students have a validation test in the May of fifth grade, and if they do well on this, they can get put in the fast track, right, where they're able to take algebra 1 in seventh grade and they're able to take geometry in eighth grade. But assuming they don't pass this, they have another opportunity over here. They can, in sixth grade, take another validation test and directly jump into Algebra 1. And even if they don't pass that, they have a final opportunity in their seventh grade over here where they can pass another exam and skip Algebra 1 altogether and jump straight into geometry. But if you notice, at every opportunity that the student misses to take the validation test. So pretend they miss it in fifth grade, then they miss it again in sixth grade. The jump in math becomes bigger. And this jump, especially skipping algebra 1, is very difficult, right? Because it's a lot of new concepts. It's kind of the basis for most future math classes. So it gets more difficult the longer a student delays, right? So with that in mind, we highly recommend the student to do the best they can starting in grade 5, right? We suggest that students do well in the validation test immediately in grade 5 and be placed in the fast track from the start so they don't have to stress in the future and they also don't have any large skips. So now to summarize the Palo Alto School District, right? It's flexible for students who need to skip a grade and take and you must, but in order to do this, you must take placement tests, right? There's three chances, as I mentioned, in total, and it's in grade 5, grade 6, and grade 7. In these 3 years, students can take a placement exam and they can hop to the most advanced tracks, as you can see, right? And as I said, our suggestion is from grade 5, students should be in the fastest class between grade 5 and 6. They need to do really well on that placement exam, right? And here we have a further kind of breakdown on the exams. So there's a math readiness assessment in seventh grade. Then there are math validation tests, right, for students who pass this, assuming that the student is in the situation. So if the student is in 7th grade, they want to jump to 8th grade, they must pass these standards, for example. Now, we have further details on the next slide about each of the exams and the scope of them. So here's a further analysis on the Palo Alto placement tests, right? So from grade 5 to 6, we can expect these topics to show up on the exam, right? Um, then grade 6 to 7, we have these topics. And then finally, grade 7 to 8, if you want to make this jump by passing the test, you have to cover these topics. So the topics get progressively harder the longer the student waits. If the student is not able to make the jump in grade 5 and instead they wait to make the jump in grade 6, they have more difficult topics. And if they wait even longer and try to wait till grade 7 to do well on the exam, then they have to prepare for even more topics, much more difficult, right? But regardless, Palo Alto is good because it's flexible and it allows students 3 opportunities to get in the fastest track. And this fastest track meets our goal of taking geometry in grade 8 and algebra 2 trig in 9th grade. So I'm sure a lot of students or parents are probably concerned about this, but pretend it's almost time for the placement test, right? What should you do if you're not sure about your ability? Maybe the student is prepared and they don't need additional help. How would you know? Well, we offer practice exams. So if we have a link over here, a QR code, and this is for the 2024 incoming grade 6 placement test. We offer a 70-minute mock test, and then after completion of that mock test, and based on the analysis of the results, we offer a one-on-one personalized suggestion from our teaching lead, right? So students can take this mock test, see where they have gaps, and then we can kind of offer our suggestions on how they can best tackle this exam. And this is again for the incoming grade 6 placement test. That means this is for students who are in grade 5 and they want to take they want to do well on the placement exam so they can be placed in the fastest track in grade 6 right here. So this track, essentially, this validation test. Yeah. Okay, so I have a question here about the Cupertino School District. So the question is, in Cupertino, is the test in 6th grade, is it the same for 7 plus and 7/8 algebra? The test is not the same. It depends, as I said. If you're in 6th grade, if you're in 6th grade, you will have these topics to cover, right? Grade 6 to 7, uh, you have to cover these topics. And then if you're taking the exam in grade 7, then you would have to cover these topics instead. So it would most likely not be the same. Yeah. So moving on, let's discuss the Saratoga School District, right? So the Saratoga School District is very stratified, right? It sets students on very specific paths and it offers only 2 potential skips for students. So starting in 5th grade, based on their iReady and SBAC scores, students can directly jump into Math 7B/8 in 6th grade. And assuming they don't do well on this exam, in grade 6, they if they are in the accelerated track, or not accelerated, but the mid-level accelerated, not the full accelerated, they can then attempt to take another exam and skip directly to Algebra 1. So essentially, if a student is able to do well in the first exam, and they're able to place in either of these 2 classes, right? Math 6/7A and Math 7B/8, they have 2 opportunities essentially to be on the fastest track, right? But if they directly place into Math 6, which is the lowest level, they if they are placed directly into Math 6 at the lowest level, they at best have the opportunity to take Algebra 1 in 8th grade, which does not meet our goal, right? Because as you notice, it's extremely stratified. Students cannot jump from Math 6 to the most accelerated track. There is no arrow here that allows that jump. So this is why we say we want students to do the best they can starting from fifth grade and doing really well on those early placement exams. This ensures that students are on the fastest track from the very start and they don't have to struggle and be stressed in the future about getting into these classes, right? So let's look a little more into how middle school will then transition into high school. So if a student is on the fastest track, right? So they're taking Math 7B/8 in sixth grade. So this is the fastest track, as we can see over here. They will end up taking AP Calculus AB or BC in their 11th grade. This is a good situation because they can now place the scores and results of this course directly on their college application. But what happens if you're in the slightly accelerated track? You end up taking AP Calculus in your senior year. And if you take it in your senior year, you now lose the opportunity to put the grade that you got on your application, and you also lose the opportunity to put the AP exam score on your application. So for top universities, this is a very big uh, issue because now you can't show your skills. Even if you do well in that class, it has less impact. And then finally, in the general track, as you can see, students can only take pre-calculus. They will not get the opportunity to even take calculus, and essentially this lowers their level of competitiveness for top universities because on their application they have less APs now, right? So next we will discuss the Santa Clara School District, right? So the Santa Clara School District had a big change recently. I remember some parents mentioning that they had some children in the Santa Clara School District. So let's get into that. So this was the previous. So I know it says current, but this is the previous curriculum because these math standards have already gone into action. So the previous curriculum or possible pathways allowed a student from Math 5 to eventually, if they do well through placement exams, take Algebra 1 in eighth grade or potentially even geometry. And this met our goal, right? By taking geometry in eighth grade. But now the math standards have changed. In the name of equity and equality, um, schools now have or the Santa Clara School District now has compaction points. So what this means is that students are basically stuck taking the same math class until ninth or until 10th grade. So as you can see here, there is one opportunity to be in a more accelerated class in eighth grade, and then there's another opportunity in between 10th and 11th grade, right? So students at best can take AP Calculus in their senior year. Now, again, this is not an ideal situation, and unfortunately, it is the reality for unfortunately, this is the reality for the Santa Clara School District. Students are locked in to at best taking AP Calculus by their senior year. So what we recommend is students try to do well in eighth grade, basically to take Algebra 1 and, sorry, to do well in the seventh grade exam, to take Algebra 1 and CC Math 8 in eighth grade, then take Geometry in ninth grade, and basically maintain the path so that they can take AP Calculus BC, right? Because we want to take AP Calculus BC or AB is fine as well. So okay, so we have a question for Cupertino. Is the test in sixth grade the same as 7 plus and 7? So I'll go back to Cupertino at the end of the presentation and answer previous questions. But for now, we will move on to the next school district. So I did know that no parents mentioned no parents here have children in the Los Altos school district. But we will cover it very quickly in that case. So the Los Altos School District is very straightforward. You have fifth grade math, and students have the opportunity to either jump to sixth grade math, CC6, or CC 6/7, Common Core 6 and 6/7. They then are allowed to stay on the accelerated path that they were able to get in here, and they will continue to take geometry in eighth grade. This is the ideal situation, right? We want students always being on the most accelerated path because, again, if they are in the other path, so they're taking CC6 math. So if they're taking CC6 math, they end up only having the option to take at best Algebra 1. So what happened? Just because the student didn't do that well on the fifth grade placement exam, they now are locked out from taking Algebra 2 in their freshman year. So although it might seem kind of like an unfair system, your middle school placement exams have direct um, implications on what math class you will be taking in high school and the number of APs you can take, right? So, just to summarize for the Los Altos School District, all students in grade 5 will take the placement test. The students who pass will be in CC6/7, which eventually leads to geometry in grade 8, which is the ideal case, right? The students who did not pass will have a second chance to take Algebra 1 in 7th grade, but this is a more difficult path, right? So as I mentioned, we always want students to be on the best path. Okay, and now we have further details about the Los Altos placement test. Again, I remember, I don't recall any parents mentioning they have children in the school district, so I won't go into too much detail. But similar to the placement test information we have on this slide, we also have placement test information on every other school. So if you have further questions about this at the end, I will have a QR code which you can scan, and then you can send in your questions. Hopefully we can help the parents with this, with any other information they need. So now we will move on to the San Jose School District. Okay. So the San Jose School District has multiple pathways and it is relatively flexible, right? So start based on the fifth grade results, students can either get placed in Math 6 or Math 6 Accelerated, right? And based on this, if they're in Math 6 Accelerated, they then have the option to jump directly into Algebra 1. But again, I would like everyone to notice that if you do not place into Math 6 Accelerated after 5th grade, students will then be locked out from taking the most advanced path. Instead, they will have to take either Math 7 Accelerated, and at best will take Geometry their 9th grade and Algebra 2 in their 10th grade, which does not meet the goal that we set earlier, right? We want students to be taking Algebra 2 in their 9th grade and completing AP Calculus in their 10th or 11th grade, right? Because this sets them up to take the most APs, put the most APs on your application, and get into the best school, right? So as I mentioned, we always want students at the very beginning in 5th and 6th grade to do their best. So some more information on the San Jose School District. So the exams are usually in late April for between grade 5 and 6, and the factors are their NWEA results as well as their SBAC score from grade 4. So a notable feature about the San Jose School District it's flexible and it gives students opportunities to level up their math every year, but um, they have prerequisites, right? And we can basically conclude that it's similar as Cupertino, where you need to enter the fastest track in grade 6 in order to basically remain ahead. And I know some parents had some questions regarding Cupertino, so I will go back there. But before I do that, I kind of want to cover um, other schools, right? So I didn't mention every school. So Milpita, San Mateo, Menlo Park, Los Gatos. I know some parents mentioned Belmont. There are a lot of school districts in the Bay Area, and I definitely won't be able to cover them all in this presentation. But we do have information about the vast majority of school districts, and Think Academy has helped students from all these different school districts, and we know the math standards. So if you have any questions regarding math standards about any specific school, you can check the official website. You can if you check the group chat, you'll have experiences from other parents. You can ask the school counselors, and then finally contact us. We have the information to help, and there's a QR code right here. I'll give everyone a second to screenshot or scan the QR code, and we will move on. Okay, so moving on, I would then like to direct everyone's attention to this slide where we have the 2024 incoming grade 6 placement test prep. So this test prep is essentially for fifth grade students, right? And you have this exam coming up, right? The fifth grade placement test to essentially set the student up so that they're in the most advanced track. So, like for example, looking back at the San Jose School District, right? If your student is in fifth grade and they want to place directly into the Math 6 accelerated track, and keep in mind, this is the only track that allows the student to take Algebra 2 in grade 9. No other track allows the student to do that. If they get stuck in the normal track, at best they can take Geometry in grade 9. So to prep for this exam, we have a uh, four-lesson test prep similar to the previous one I showed with Dr. Marie. This one is taught by Dr. Rashmi. She's again extremely experienced. She covers all the important topics that you would need for this exam. And again, we are offering a $20 off promo code. So if any parents are interested in this, if any parents are afraid that their kids are not ready for this, haven't studied pre-algebra yet, because we do understand in fifth grade, public schools do not teach pre-algebra, right? They do not prepare you to take these exams that allow the student to get into the most accelerated path, because this path is only meant for the most academically rigorous students. But with proper preparation, we believe any student can get into this track and do well in this track. So this is the course we offer for that. In addition to that, we also are offering a bonus. So if you sign up using this code, and on top of getting $20 off, we will also provide our $30 review guide for free. It covers 100 pages, covering all the knowledge points that you would need essentially for this for grade 6, so that the student can basically be well ahead of the curve and continue to do well even after placing in that advanced class. Okay. So now moving on, I have some common questions here, right? So, does my child need to take more advanced classes? Can they follow along if they do? So, this whole time, I've been mentioning taking really advanced math classes, trying to be on the accelerated track, doing well on these exams. And this might be concerning because some parents might feel that their child is not ready to take these type of classes, and will they be able to follow along? Well, we believe that they will, because even though what's it called, sorry, even though these classes can be more accelerated, the difficulty of the class is not higher. So for example, grade 7 and grade 8, if a student hops directly from grade 6, for example, and takes Algebra 1, this Algebra 1 course is the same Algebra 1 that a freshman in high school is taking. So the class content and and exams and etc. everything will be the same. The only thing that's different is the students have to just study and learn at a faster pace. And with outside assistance and outside studying, outside of the main class and main homework, students can actually do well in these courses and not feel rushed at all. Because again, it is not the content is more difficult, it is simply the pace is slightly faster, right? So just to summarize all the information we had today about placement and exams and stuff. So I think it's important not to get bogged down in the details. So we explained a lot of different school districts. We looked at how the pathways vary based on what school you go to, all the different exams. But again, the concept is generally the same. Even though different schools have different rules about placement tests, they usually are along the same time during the year, and they're usually covering the same type of materials. And generally, um, if students do well on these exams, they get placed in the faster track. So it is pretty simple once you know when those exams are and what you need to do to prepare. So starting from grade 5, students usually have to pass 2 placement tests to get into the fastest track, right? So again, we can use San Jose as an example. In grade 5, um, so in grade 5, if a student is able to do well and get into Math 6 accelerated, they then have to take another exam to get put into Algebra 1. At this point, they have completed their two placement exams and they will be set in this accelerated path for the remainder of their education, public school education, right? They'll take Algebra 1, geometry, and then end up taking calculus in their 11th grade. So doing well on these two placement tests is crucial. Then, um, in addition to that, some schools also require test scores and then class performance to in addition to the two placement tests I mentioned earlier. Therefore, we can basically conclude that students must finish Common Core Math 6 before the grade 5 placement, and students need to finish pre-algebra before the grade 6 placement, right? So a couple questions in the chat. How can students accelerate if enrolled in homeschool for a grade 6 year? And if we're at a private school and don't have the grade 5 test, how can the middle school know where to place us? So private schools definitely vary. It's not generally the same as the public schools because they might not have placement tests and but private schools usually do put the student in the highest math class possible. So going back to the example of Basis, which I showed you in the very start, right? Basis was a private STEM focused school and they had extremely high math standards. So the very minimum math class a student would take by the time they're in eighth grade would be geometry and they automatically would be in algebra 2. But feel free to reach out to us after the presentation and um, we can see what kind of math they will most likely be placed into based on their scores and the middle school they're going to attend. Okay, so a quick summary. Um, Ideally, students should get into the fastest track, right? Otherwise, they will have fewer opportunities to take AP courses. So as I said earlier, from the very start, try to have the students do the best they can, get into the best track possible, and they should be fine to maximize the number of AP courses. Second, excelling in class is also important, right? So I've mentioned getting into the fastest track and students doing well in those tracks in terms of scores, but they also need to maintain a good GPA because colleges look at GPA and difficulty of class. If a student is taking advanced classes but also not doing well in those classes, it will reflect poorly. So we also want students to be excelling in the class so they maintain a high GPA. And finally, the fast track and regular track only differ in speed, not difficulty. Therefore, with some extra practice out of school, a student will have no issue staying on the fast track and generally will not struggle. Okay, so now I'd like to kind of address why Think Academy, right? So I've given everyone the information about the different public school, what they kind of can expect going forward, but what does Think Academy offer to help students, right? And I know we're going a little over time, so I do apologize, but please bear with me. So Think Academy is essentially tailored for advanced middle school track, right? Our courses and our general layout of how the courses progress is in line with the standard that we set earlier, right? We wanted all students to be taking Algebra 2 in grade 9, and we offer that same path. So we have an advanced and an honors based on where students can place, right? So we set grade 6, we have pre-algebra, grade 7, we have Algebra 1, and by grade 8, we can have them taking geometry plus Algebra 2, right? So we're the same level as the private schools, 1 year ahead of public schools fastest track, and we can essentially uh, help students be in a position to where they can take um, the most uh, the most math APs by the beginning of their high school, so ninth grade or even in 10th grade, right? So first, I'd like to address the most relevant program for the parents today, which is our Road to Middle School, right? This is for students who are who need help, who are in public school, and who want to be in the fastest track to basically finish CC6 in one semester, right? So this is for grade 5 students, right, who want to finish Common Core 6, and in doing so, they will be prepared to take the placement exam because they would have taken the next year math course and In doing so, they now have the right math to take to do well in the placement exam and then place in the fast track, right? So we also the objective is to help students prepare to be in the fastest track, to prepare students from middle school math classes, from mathematical operations to abstract thinking, and then finally to help students basically do well and take pre-algebra honors in the summer if they can pass the placements, and then also prepare them for math competitions. So this is one thing I haven't mentioned up until now, and that is math competitions. Now, math competitions are a great way to stand out on your college application because, as we mentioned, there's doing well on the math exams to be put in the fast track. Then there's having a high GPA, right? But then on top of that, a student needs extracurriculars. So if a student is already taking advanced math classes ahead of generally what the rest of their classes, they should also consider looking at math competitions, um which Think Academy offers a lot of preparation for. So our target students are um, right? Grade 5 and grade 6 students who plan to study ahead in grade 5 and make sure that they can take pre-algebra, so CC7 slash CC8 in grade 6, right? Which is the fastest possible speed for public schools. And even if your student didn't do well, right? So they didn't do well on that grade 5 exam and now they're in grade 6, they still want to get into the fast track, right? We also off the road to middle school will also help them finish pre-algebra in grade 7 so that when they have another opportunity to take a placement exam, they can at least place in the track that allows them to take calculus by their senior year. So at least they're able to take AP calculus, right? So moving on, I would like everyone to look at this slide. So this is essentially just um, a kind of our track record, right? So 1 in 4 perfect scores on the Math Kangaroo exam, which is for middle school and elementary students. And this is a math competition that basically is all over the United States. Thousands of students take it, and out of this, we have 22 um, students who got top one, so perfect scores. So 30% of all perfect scores in the US. And then we have 29 people in top three, right? So Think Academy is essentially sets the benchmark for for math in terms of competitions, in terms of placement exams. Like our track record really highlights that our students are able to do extremely well in math competitions and generally be the best domestically in the nation for math. I'd also like to point out that we've helped over 1,000 plus students into the fast track thus far. So on top of those elementary schools I mentioned, sorry, those school districts I mentioned, we also have helped students from all of these different school districts as well, right? So we have information on a very wide variety of schools. So that's why I said earlier, if you have further questions, please scan the code that I'll show at the end and reach out about your school. Even though I might not have covered it today, there's a good chance that we have information about that school. We know about the requirements and what students need to do in order to pass the placement exams, right? So here's another slide showing our AMC test, our um, AMC math competition kind of record. So we've had 35 distinguished students in honor roll, and then we've had 115 IME qualifiers, right? So this is again two very prestigious math competitions, and Think Academy consistently has students basically um, just topping these exams, right? And basically being the best in the nation. So we have a good scope of experience, and we strongly believe that if your student joins us, they will um, they will greatly benefit not only being put in the most advanced track, but also setting themselves up to generally do well in for math competitions, which is a great thing to have in your applications. And in fact, we are so confident in our curriculums and what we offer that Think Academy offers a full refund at any time in our long-term course. So at any point in any of our long-term courses, if you feel the student is not getting value and is not learning, right? You can pull your student out and Think Academy will offer a full refund. And if you just want to try the class out, we also offer trial classes at $1 simply to see if a student fits, right? You can attend any of the class, and it's hosted basically by all of our teachers. Your student can be placed in one of the trial classes and see if they like it, right? So the reason we offer such good guarantees is because, or refund policies, is because we are very confident in our curriculum, right? Very few students end up refunding, and almost all students benefit from the Think Academy programs, right? We offer math placement help. Um, we offer long-term courses to generally make sure that students are able to exceed their math expectations out of school, and then also help students prep for advanced math competitions to really help them stand out in college applications, right? So that should be everything for today's presentation. Um, as I said, finally, here's our final slide. Thank you all for joining me today, and I hope you benefited and gained some information. I will stay a couple of minutes afterward just to answer some questions, but please feel free to scan this code, and if you have any concerns, any questions, um, feel free to reach out, and we will provide any further information that you want. So yeah, thank you. Yeah. So if anyone has any questions, feel free to now put them in the chat, and I can try to go back and address them. So yeah, so within the scope of this presentation, I do not have Campbell Unified, but I'm very confident that Think Academy does have records regarding the placement exams for Campbell, as well as um, what what requirements students need. So feel free to scan this code and then fill out the contact as well with your question, and we will get back to you as soon as possible. Thank you. Also, just going back, so there was a question I remember. So regarding is the Cupertino test in grade 6, is it the same test for 7 plus and 7/8 algebra? We can go back and look at Cupertino real quick. Okay, so for Cupertino, right? Sorry, one second, just trying to pull up your question. So in Cupertino, is the test in grade 6 the same test for 7 plus and 7/8? Yes. So sorry if I answered this incorrectly before. I got it confused with Palo Alto. So it's the exact same exam. There is one diagnostic assessment for 7th grade placement, right? So if the student is able to do well on this diagnostic exam, they can directly place into math 7 8 algebra. If they get a slightly lower score, they will be placed in math 7 plus, and in worst case they'll be placed in math 7, right? But again, do keep in mind being placed in the most accelerated track is like ideal, because um, if students are unable to get into this track directly from the Math 6 exam, then they won't have another opportunity, right? they won't have another opportunity to take geometry because there's only one opportunity, and that is to do well on the Math 6 placement exam, take Math 7, 8 algebra, and then take another diagnostic exam, do well on that, and then the student will be placed in geometry. And I sorry for not clarifying this earlier. So Think Academy offers both virtual classes as well as in-person classes. So yes, to answer your question. And we do have our classes listed on our website. You can check the area as well as the virtual class to see if it is the correct class for your student. Yeah. So Gina has just put the link for our website in the chat. Feel free to check it out, and then see what classes you may be interested in signing up your student for. Okay, so if there are no further questions, that concludes this meeting. This webinar. Thank you everyone again for joining us, and I hope that even if you don't join us at Think Academy, I hope that you gain some very useful information and will consider us in the future. Thank you.